strippers over there. If you'll stand there, they'll come up. Good evening. Good evening. On behalf of the mayor and council, I'd like to welcome you to City Hall. This evening, we're going to have a special ceremony to recognize service longevity for various city employees. You'll always find that the mayor and council appreciate an audience that is very, what I'll call, social. And what that means is we want you to have a good experience tonight, and one of the ways to do that is to make sure that if you're interested in taking a picture, that you feel free to just come right up. Lisa, raise your hand, please. Come up in front of Lisa and take, I know she has a camera, she may get your best side with that shot, but still. We do want you to feel free to come up and take pictures. The personnel that are going to be recognized this evening are members of your family. They are friends of yours. They are people that you have spent a lot of time with. And this is not just a special ceremony for them, it's a special ceremony for you. So when your loved one or otherwise comes up, we want you to feel free to come up and take some pictures. At this time, I'd like to ask the mayor to formally open the session. Mayor?
Thank you, Dr. Woodruff. And I want to thank everybody who's come out tonight. I'll get to the employees in just a moment. But all the families, the friends, the supporters of the folks that work here for the city of Jacksonville, thank you for coming and supporting your friend or family member who's being recognized tonight for being such a loyal employee of the city of Jacksonville, working for the people of the city of Jacksonville. You know, a lot of times we get, us elected people get a lot of credit for a lot of things that without your help wouldn't happen. I know, and my fellow council members know who drive the train here. You know, it's the individual employee of this city who is out there day to day, you know, interacting with citizens, interacting with each other to make this city work. And I want to thank you personally from the bottom of my heart for what you do for this city. We're going to recognize some folks tonight, but before we get going, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I have asked a very good friend of mine who's been a friend of mine for 30 some odd years, who's a retired policeman with the Jacksonville Police Department, Mr. George Barrett, if he'll join me up front here. The first time I ever met this young man, he had just retired from the Marine Corps, and he was working out in the gym, and after watching him, I decided I wouldn't work out that day because I didn't want to become embarrassed. I just kind of watched him, but I've asked George to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, and so George.
Can you repeat after me? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. George, you retired in 16 or 7? 2016. George retired in 2016 after 30 years, well, it was 30 years, wasn't it? 26. Okay, and how long did you do in the Marine Corps? 21. Okay, so he's done a lot of service during his time. But George was an exemplary police officer during his career with the Jacksonville Police Department. And again, you know, there's nobody that I'd rather have as my backup than George Barrett, I can tell you that. Okay, so at this time, I guess we will recognize some of our employees.
Good. First of all, we notice that there are several families over here with children. This is your opportunity to try out to be an elected official. So if you folks would like to come take these seats that are behind us, but you're more than welcome to. Seriously, the presentation is going to be a little lengthy. Your children may want to come up. That's up to you. Okay. Okay, thank you. You know, city government is the city government, or is the government that is closest to the people. Certainly, we've been through elections this last day. We talked about federal and state and county and judges and so forth. But when it gets down to actually the daily delivery of service, there is no government that presents more to its citizens than your city government. Whether you live in Jacksonville or some other city, we are where the real service is provided. Let me give you some quick statistics. If you're inside the city and you have a medical emergency, or you have someone breaking into your house or something like that, and you need to call 911, the city police department responds in 3 minutes and 35 seconds. That's pretty amazing. And there are literally thousands of calls that they make every year where they respond in an average time of 3 minutes, 35 seconds. All the people who are here representing the police department tonight, raise your hand. George, that includes you. You got to raise your hand. These are the people, 3 minutes, 35 seconds. Firemen, because they are dispatched from a fixed base, it takes them a little longer. But firemen respond to medical emergencies and to accidents as well as fires. And yes, they still respond to cats and trees, but that's supposed to be funny, by the way. Y'all can laugh now. There you go. But their average response time is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And they respond to thousands of calls. And over 60% of their calls today are medically related. Everybody related to the fire department, raise your hand who are here. That's your fire department. Water. We're very blessed to have an amazing water supply here in this area. Our nanofiltration system, which is basically a desalination plant, very expensive, but guess what? The people with the water department produce 1.8 billion, as in a B, 1.8 billion gallons of water every year for our customers. And those customers are primarily just inside the city. If you're with utilities, water, utilities, wastewater, raise your hand, please. Thank you all for what you do. Aquaman, we'll be recognizing you in a minute. Sanitation. Sanitation crews pick up garbage, recycling, and horticultural from every house in the city. And they do that every week. Now, some weeks when we have a holiday, we don't pick up horticultural. But through our sanitation workers, we provide 1.6 million customer service calls to the residents of Jacksonville. 1.6 million. Now, I have to admit, my wife takes care of 3 of those calls every week, and I really appreciate that. But if you're with sanitation tonight, raise your hand. Good. Great work. Great work. Transit. Twice a year, the mayor and council allow free ridership on the transit system. One of those times is coming up at Thanksgiving. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there will be free ridership on the transit system. But even without that, we carried 114,000 riders this past year on the Jacksonville transit system. A lot of those people have no way to get to work or to get to a grocery store other than that transit system. Utility billing. Yes, we do have to charge you for water and sewer. Like to give it away, but the bonding company, I mean, even Randy Thomas would like to give away the water and sewer. But the bonding company and the city attorney say, Mr. Thomas, we can't do that. They send out monthly utility bills. 168,000 utility bills a year. You know, you think of Jacksonville as being a small community. Many of you grew up here. If you've lived in Jacksonville more than 20 years, raise your hand. You know, y'all can remember, now you got to remember, that's the year I was born, 20 years ago. That's my story, I'm sticking to it. But you forget that Jacksonville has grown. Look at the level of service that we have just talked about. We are big business. And the mayor and council have said to me and to the staff, we are to run this operation as a business. We this year are a $100 million business. $100 million business. That's your police, your fire, your water, your wastewater, your stormwater, your parks and recreation, your transit, you know, capital projects. We are big business. But at the end of the day, big business doesn't operate off of a board of directors, even though I think we have an outstanding board of directors and our elected officials. It operates off of individual employees who have come together with a common goal of what? Service to others before self. And that's why we're here tonight. We're here to recognize 68 people out of the 556. Now, every city employee eventually gets to the 5-year mark or the 10-year mark or whatever. But tonight, we're going to celebrate 68 people who have reached either their 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20, 25, even 30 years. I mean, 30 years, I was just in the first grade, and that's supposed to be fun, okay? But it is indeed a longevity ceremony, but it's more than that. It is a night to say thank you to people who have dedicated themselves to service. Doesn't matter whether you wear blue, whether you wear a work uniform, whether you're out in the field with Parks and Recreation, these people have dedicated themselves to service. We'd like to begin with the 5-year group. As I read your name, I'd like for you to come on up. Come on up is a Southern term. That means come up as you would like. Come on up. And I'm going to ask with this group, if the mayor, we have 3 council members who are absent tonight because they're attending the National League of Cities meeting and they're out of the city. But we do have tonight Councilmember Bittner, Councilmember Warden, and Councilmember Thomas to recognize along with the mayor. So in the first group, Mr. Thomas, would you come and stand with the mayor? In this first group, we have 23 employees. Most of them are here this evening. Let's start off Chris Koltick with the IT, that's our computer systems. We also have Jane Ives with JPD, Andrew Krusco with JPD, Vincent Waddell, JPD, Jonathan Pravat with Fire and Emergency Services, Joseph Jones, JPD, Brandon Hansley with Fire and Emergency Services, Tyree Fisher with Fire and Emergency Services, Colby Kennedy with Fire and Emergency Services, and people who were not able to be with us tonight include Andrew Jenkins, Christy James, and Victoria Longal. These are folks who came to work in 2013. How are you? Every year, I like to give a little bit of historical perspective as to what went on, 5 years ago. So do you know what went on 5 years ago? No? Would you like to know what goes on 5 years ago? Okay, the answer is supposed to be no, because this is supposed to be a comedy show. So the answer is yes.
If we have one more, Hanyetta Harris.
Hanyetta,
Sorry.
okay.
One more.
I'm sorry, I only read one page. We have actually more. Let's do take 2. Okay. That concludes the first page. So going to the second page, we have Blair Hercula with sanitation. Now, Blair is really going to stick me on this because whenever I see him, he's always on me. So now that I've forgotten it, Blair, you got one on me. So I'm just sanitation. Yeah. Okay. Kevin Riopel with media. Kevin's probably going to come through that door in a minute. Rex Gay with streets. William Batchelor with water supply. Tony Mintz with traffic. Nicholas Swinson with utility lines. Scott Perosi with parks. Brandon Davis with wastewater. Ron Cannon with Parks and Recreation. And Hoyetta Harris, please come up. Now, is there a third sheet I was supposed to have gotten, or is that everybody? We're good? Okay, these are people who have served for 5 years. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, here are some facts about 2013. Today, the United States population is roughly 326 million. Now, obviously, we're going to have another census in another 2 years. But 5 years ago, it was 315 million. So in 5 years, this country has grown by 11 million people. Somebody out there is doing a lot of something, okay? Another interesting thing, you remember tweeter? I have no idea what that is. To me, I thought that was a bird that sang in the evening, but apparently, Chris, what's tweeter? You see how IT works in this city? Very well. Okay, Tweeter, it went public 5 years ago. Gas was $3.80. Ron Massey is probably the only person in the room who remembers the answer to this. Who was the Camp Lejeune base commander in 2013? General Castalvi. Right. And Target had their after Christmas cyber attack that stole whatever it was, 50 million identities. So, and then the other thing, the Center for Public Safety was under construction. And of course, it was under construction for several years, but at the same time, I thought those were interesting facts. Now, with that, I'd like for all of you to raise your right hand, turn it backwards, pat yourself on the back. You did a great job. Thank you for all the work you do with the city. Thank you. I apologize. Sorry about that. Okay. Mr. Warden? Mr. Warden, would you come up and stand with the mayor? This is the 10-year group. The 10-year group includes 32 people, and that means they started to work in 2008. And just for the record, I have 3 sheets this time, so if I only turn one page, let me know. First, from Fleet, Joseph Scott. Is he with us? Okay. Second, Chris Contreras with GIS. I know Chris is here. Lily Gray from Community Engagement. She brought her boyfriend, Lee, with her tonight, as in husband, boyfriend. Looking good, Lee. Vanessa Smith, JPD. Christy Smith, JPD. Jason Logano, JPD. William Horn, JPD. Daniel Karate, JPD. David Livingston, JPD. And by the way, everything's safe in the community. It's not they had to go out on a special run. All right. Okay. Brent Cook with Fire and Emergency Services. Bert Regelsberger, Fire and Emergency Services. He said he wasn't going to come because he didn't think I could pronounce his last name. So, Tracy Brill, Fire and Emergency Services. Nicholas Strong, Fire and Emergency Services. Scott Brown, Fire and Emergency Services. James Keller, JPD. Ron Massey, City Manager's Office. Michael Whaley, Streets. Cedric Maddox, Sanitation. Charles Sutton, Sanitation. Brian Parker, Streets. Timothy Rivers, Streets. Roland Oliver, Streets. Tracy Jackson, Community Engagement. Sean Anderson, Water Supply. Christopher Mickey, Metering. Christopher Moore, Wastewater. Tony Strickland, Recreation and Parks. And then those who were not able to be with us tonight include Trudy Parmenter, who is with Utility Billing, Heather Herman with GIS, Mary Rhodes, who is with the IT Department, and Christopher Funk. And then we have one other name. Randy Thomas, 10 years of service as a city council member. (2008) facts. If you remember the population in 2013, I don't remember what it was, so I've got to look at my notes. Okay. It was 315,000. Well, 5 years earlier, it was 303,000. So you see, almost every 5 years as a country, we're growing by about 10 or 11 million people. It's It's pretty amazing. Who was the governor of North Carolina in 2008? Anybody got an answer? Beverly Perdue. Who said that? Good, you win a chicken. Purdue. Mr. Thomas already knows the answer to this one. Gas was $3.39, so I'll ask him, how much was gas 10 years ago? $339. Almost right. You got it right. Now, the crash of the housing market. Many of you lived through that. I can tell you, we lived through it as a family in South Florida. Who was the Public Works Director? Now, who in here is with Public Works? Okay, Big Mike, you're with Public Works. Brian, you're with, okay. Who was the Public Works Director of the city in 2008? Grant Sparks. Good job. And who retired as the President of Cuba in 2008? Fidel Castro. It's amazing. It's already been 10 years since he retired. And they're still having public elections down there, right? They got Democrats and Republicans down there, correct? Okay. This is your group who came to work in 2008. I can tell you, you folks, I know every one of you, you make a difference every day, and we'll do the same thing. Put your right hand up, turn it backwards, now pat yourself on the back. You do a great job, and I really appreciate what you do. Mr. Bittner, would you come up, please? Now, 2013, 15 years ago, you know, time goes by very quickly, doesn't it, Chris? Can you imagine that 2003 was 15 years ago? You know, we had just gone through the Y2K scare where we thought everything was going to crash in 2000, and it apparently didn't. Of course, I still can't use a computer, but that's neither here nor there. I can't blame it on Y2K. I guess I can blame it on RLW. 15 years ago, we have 10 employees that came to work with us. Daniel Wells, JPD. Wally Hanson, Public Services. Now, you'll see their pictures. You'll see their pictures up here. Melinda Barrage, Streets. Come on up. James Berthette, Sanitation. Patricia, or Pat, pardon me, Pat Donovan Brandenburg. Brian Neely with Facility Maintenance, and Pat, by the way, is with Water Quality. Brian is with Facility Maintenance. Douglas Crane, Facility Maintenance. Joseph Cram, better known as Aquaman, who runs our water plant. Woo, Joe! Susan Baptist, our Recreation Director. Jojo Carirso with the Recreation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I got them all. That's good. Now, good job. Good job. In 2003, everybody have an idea what a Chick-fil-A sandwich cost in 2003? I'll give you some hints, okay? Answer A is $2.29. Answer B is $10.80, and answer C is $1,000. So,
Answer A.
answer A. Okay, everybody believes A, raise your hand. Good. You can tell why they've stuck around so long. They're a very educated, up-to-date group. Okay. Here was the question, though. Who was the city manager of Jacksonville in 2003?
Crystal. Hagan retired. My name is Crystal.
Mr. Bittner, who was the city manager in 2003?
2003, Ken Hagan.
Okay, that's good. Some of you knew it. Important thing, he wasn't. I'm just saying, okay? Finding Nemo was the top film. Unfortunately, the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster occurred that year, something that all of us will always remember. Mayor Phillips, who was the mayor of Jacksonville in 2003? You're correct, Elsie Smith. That's right. I'm just helping you out, Mayor. That's my job, you know. Okay.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. But in 2003, you were a city employee. And what were you doing? That's right, deputy chief, right? Okay. This is the group, 15 years of service. Y'all are wonderful people. Again, I know each one of you personally. It's an honor to work with you. I know your work ethic. I kid Joe because remember the 1.8 billion gallons of water? This is the man and his crews who produce that. If you haven't toured the water plant, you should. Call City Hall, we'll set up a special tour. If you want to just go see our product, go home and turn on your tap. You know? Right, Joe?
Bring it.
Okay, bring it on. Right hand up, back, pat on the back. Good. Well done, folks. Appreciate every one of you. Good job. 1998. Hard to believe it's been 20 years ago, 2 decades, however you want to look at it, the last century. Any way you want to look, 20 years goes by like a day. We have 8 employees that we'd like to recognize, and we're going to ask them to come up. And at this point, any of the council members, I know Mr. Bittner, you may have a little difficulty, but if all of y'all would come up, if possible, I would appreciate it. 20 years ago, the following personnel came to work with the city. Now, when I say that, that's the cue for media to suddenly put up pictures. So apparently they didn't get the cue. 20 years ago, I say 20 years ago, there it works. Okay. Let's start with Norman Davis. Norman Davis, let me read you about Norman. Norman Davis is a graduate of Morris High School in Bronx, New York. He was in the United States Marine Corps for 13 years. Still does 50 push-ups, just like that, right, sir? 47. 47, yes, sir. His duties were a Marine security officer, prisoner escort, Marine drill instructor. Now, there's a surprise. Look at this guy. Does that guy look like a Marine drill instructor? Yes, he does. And what do they say to you? Yes, sir. Okay. He was also a drug and alcoholic counselor and coordinator. Norm's been with us for 20 years. Been a great asset to JPD, a great asset to the city. Glenn Hargett. Glenn, come up. Also known as Mr. Radio. Why? Because for more than 20 years, he was the news director and president of WJNC in downtown Jacksonville. And I can hear that voice now. This is Glenn Hargett welcoming you to WJNC downtown. Is that the way it was, Glenn? Not quite. Not quite. Okay. Now, when he retired from broadcasting, we were fortunate he came to work with the city. Everything we do with social media, we do with Glenn and 4 personnel. We have the best television station there is. You can watch, even including this program. Hi out there, this is live. Nice to see you. All of this, everything the mayor and council we do, including our advisory boards, we do live. It's never scripted. The mayor and council don't meet behind closed doors and then come out and have a meeting where they show the public what they've decided. No, it doesn't work that way. With Jacksonville City Government, the mayor and council have set the standard. It is always in the public eye. Every workshop, every advisory board meeting, every council meeting. Glenn and his staff are the people who do that. If you look at the storm that came through us, remember Florence? Yeah, how could we forget her? Well, guess what Glenn and his staff did? Facebook, Twitter, whatever those things are called, all those types of social media. We had literally hundreds of thousands of people were kept informed because of what Glenn and his crew did. And we're certainly proud of Glenn, not just for what he does today, but the things he has done in the past. He helped create Sturgeon City. He helped get Jacksonville Transit started. And the rumor that that was in his own truck, that's not true. It was actually in his own car. I can see some of you are following the script very well. That's good. He was the creator of the Youth Council, and he helped create the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission. Been many people in this community who've had an impact, who put a fingerprint on this city. Few have put a bigger impact than you. Well done. Charles James is not able to be with us tonight. He's with Jacksonville Police Department. I don't believe he's with us. Nope. Okay. Next, Tommy Jimenez. Tommy, come up. Tommy is in our fleet department, and boy, does he love to work on big stuff, little stuff. He loves police cars, especially when they're running. Right, Tommy? Yes, sir. Good. Keep them running. Everybody made it here tonight. That's it. Tommy was born in Puerto Rico. He was raised in Miami, Florida. He, like many of you, served in the Marine Corps for 8 years. One of his hobbies is restoring old cars. Now, Ron Massey, the deputy manager, believes that an old car is a police car with at least 200,000 miles on it. Mike back there doesn't agree with that at all. It's an old car when it's got 47,000 miles on it or hasn't been washed in a week, okay? But Tommy, you collect old cars, you work on old cars. I got one, I'll bring it by, okay? Good. Does it run? No, I wouldn't bring it by if it ran. Okay. Also, he has 3 wonderful grandchildren. So Tommy's been with us, and now he has been promoted to I believe your title is shop foreman, or whatever the title is. That's the right title? Give me the right title if it's not. Okay, fleet shop supervisor. I just know him as Tommy. I don't need to know his title. So, but a great asset with what we do over there. What you don't realize in the fleet department is everything that we have. You see police cars, you see fire cars, or fire trucks even. But commercial garbage loaders, all of the horticultural material, everything we do relative to streets and maintenance. I mean, I think we have like 80 million pieces of equipment. At least that's what his budget request was for. They need more people. But these are the people who keep it running every day. Next picture, please. Now, Dee Johnson is not with us this evening. I don't believe Dee is with us. We'll come back to, let's go to Gail Maids. Gail? Okay. Gail Maids. Now, let me explain to you why all the city employees, every city employee knows that Gail is the keeper of the money. That's the only reason they clapped. If they bring her chocolate and things like that, they get more money. When Gail first accepted the position with the finance department with the city, her plan was to stay only 3 to 5 years or a shorter period of time if she could find a better job. But, 20 years later, she still hasn't found a better job. So we are really happy about that, Gail, especially Randy Thomas. He is the only person, we get these budget books that are like, no joke, they're this thick. Every penny, he's the only council member who wants it. And then he will call Gail and say, I think you've subtracted or added wrong on page 4008. Right? Am I telling the truth here? Okay, that's good. Yeah. Gail has her CPA. She was born and raised in this part of the state. Now, it says she was born and raised in Onslow County, but actually you live in Jones County, right?
I was born and raised in Onslow County, but I moved to Jones County.
After you got raised?
Years.
Okay. So you're born and raised here. Now, let me show you what being raised here actually means. Please. can say is, the pictures don't lie, folks. Carmen Miracle, our city clerk. Carmen? Carmen came to work with the city when she was 13. She and Clark were dating. Clark was a senior in high school and she was 13. She told me to say that, Clark. I'm just saying. Where are you, Clark? Yep, there you are. Okay. She earned a master's degree and she earned her master's clerk, municipal clerk award in 2007. She was president of the North Carolina Association of Municipal Clerks 2010 through 2011. She was presented with the North Carolina Order of the Longleaf Pine. That's an order given by the governor in 2013. She was the North Carolina Clerk of the Year in 2015. You can set all of that aside, though, because the most important thing that's happened in her life is she now has twin grandsons. And she traveled to Peru, although they now live in the Charlotte area. She traveled to Peru to enjoy that part of her family. Carmen and her husband have also 2 sons. And Carmen is a great asset to the city. She keeps all of our records. She takes care of all the minutes, public records requests, everything. If you want to know anything that's ever happened with the city, this is the lady who can get it done for you, and she gets it done correctly. Ashley Weaver. Is Ashley with us? Well, I had some great things on Ashley, but if Ashley's not here, I'll tell them behind her back. No, I won't do that. But these are the group that represent 20 years of service. Raise your right hand. Turn it backwards. That's that one back. That's it. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Okay, we have 2 groups left. 25 years of service. 1993. Seems like yesterday. We have 9 employees we'd like to recognize for 25 years of service. Lance Greenwood with JPD. Walter Marshall with JPD. Devon Bryant with JPD. Devon's not able to be here. He had a conflict. David Brown. I believe David also had a conflict. Sean McGill with JPD. Stephen Jones with Fire and Emergency Services. Jerry Hardison with the Boston Red Sox. Just saying. You know, if you can't get a job, you become a Red Sox fan. That's all I can say. Danny Bryant, Building Inspections. William Brown, Wastewater. "25 years of service, 1993. Let me read you a little bit about some of these folks. Lance. Lance is a graduate of Jacksonville High School. He worked as a senior lube technician for Jiffy Lube. He joined the Jacksonville Police Department, obviously, 25 years ago. I mean, it doesn't take you to be a rocket scientist to be a city manager to read the script, okay? He's also had other jobs around the community, including working part-time at Pizza Hut, Humphrey Heating and Air, and Roses on Gum Branch. One of the things I can say about Lance, look at that smile. This is a guy who knows community policing, knows how to work in crisis situations. Why? Because he's got a personality. He knows how to put people at ease. Every time I have ever seen him, what do I get? That's it. Yeah. No, I haven't ever gotten this from him. No, it's always this. Walter Marshall, graduate of Franklin Roosevelt High School in New York. Now, was that New York City or New York State?
New York State.
New York State. What town is that?
Rochester.
Rochester. Okay, thank you. Before working with the city, he was a distribution supervisor at Eastman, I guess that's Eastman Kodak as I would know it, in Rochester, New York. Thank you, sir. He retired as a center supervisor with Parks and Recreation. He currently works as a school crossing guard at Clyde Irwin. And I will tell you, I have seen Walter out there directing traffic. Now, if you think X.Y. Brown can direct traffic, I'm just saying, Walter can put X.Y. in the shadow. Walter takes care of those children out there. He does a great job, and I know the children and their families appreciate that job well done. Sean McGill, guess what? Another graduate of Jacksonville High School. According to my notes, there were 8 people in the graduating class, and 2 of them are up here. It says that Sean graduated first among the boys, and Lance graduated second among the boys, and that was behind the 6 girls. I'm just reading the script here, sir. Okay. He's worked as a landscaper. He's worked with sporting goods stores and with Fresh Market. You may not recognize Sean without the blue light on, because most of the time, if you've ever met Sean, it's because your wife was driving too fast while you were a passenger in the car. At least that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. But Sean and his folks do a great job out there on the streets. They are the people who tell people, no, 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 you're not supposed to drive 70 in a school zone. It doesn't matter how late your daughter is, sir. You know, you just don't do that. These are people, though, just like every police officer. When they stop people, they have no idea what they're stopping. These are people you need to keep in your thoughts and prayers, because you just never know. Let's see who's next. How are you tonight? You're doing well. Fire and Emergency Services, 25 years. Do you remember where you went to high school?
Dixon,
Yep, that's what it says. Do you remember what year you graduated?
1990.
That's what it says. I got to change the script every now and then. I mean, come on. Okay. Now, do you remember where you worked before you came to work with the fire department?
I believe it was New River Repair,
And do you remember which station you were first stationed at?
Station 1,
And do you remember what station you're currently stationed at?
Station 3.
Okay, good. Who's out there with Station 3? You can get him home tonight. Everything is good. Okay. Jerry Hardison. My. Jerry Hardison, hey, it says you were also a graduate. So you were one of the girls at Jacksonville High? No, that's okay. The only thing I can say about Jerry is he's a Red Sox fan. But he used good judgment in the fact that he married a beautiful young lady. Please stand up. Please stand up. And she is a Yankees fan. So I'm just showing you that in every marriage there has to be someone who has good judgment. Now, Jerry has done a lot of things in his career, but one of the funniest things is he has a dog. And he named that dog after probably the greatest Red Sox baseball player ever, Yogi Berra. No, I'm sorry, that's the best Yankee ever. Who is the best Red Sox player?
Carl Yastrzemski.
Carl Yastrzemski. And what's the name of your dog?
Yaz.
Yaz. Now, Yaz is a little puppy that weighs like 4,000 pounds. He's built like a tank. And what kind of dog is he?
English Bulldog.
He's an English Bulldog. If you've never seen an English Bulldog, don't go to his house, because it is not a friendly dog. I can tell you that. The pride, I think, in Jerry's life, though, is his grandson. What's his name?
Garen,
Garen. How old is he?
3 years old. He'll be 4 in February.
And what's the favorite toy that he has?
Legos now.
Yeah. And they build little fire trucks out of those Legos. So, good job. Danny Bryant. Danny graduated from Richlands High School. He has 2 daughters, 2 sons, and how many granddaughters? 5. He has 5. Somehow my script, which actually came from him, said he had 4. Then he called back and said, oops, I forgot, 3 months ago we had another one. So the newest one's a girl also. So he was born in Kinston. He was raised in Onslow County. And let me tell you, the man who has probably had the biggest job and sometimes the most unpleasant job in this whole recovery is Danny. Why? Because he is the person who has to decide who gets to move back into their house and who doesn't. Well, actually, it's all these people over here. They want to see you after this is over. But I have to give Danny a special pat on the back. And actually, come on up here, Danny. I'll pat you on the back. Okay. Now you can go back. That's good. Seriously, this guy has carried the load. He was out there as soon as the storm got over with assessments. He was out there with his people on weekends and late in the evenings meeting with individual property owners, sometimes saying, everything looks good. And other times saying, folks, I hate to tell you, I'm not going to be able to let you move back into your house because your electricity was damaged. It's just not safe, even though you want to move back in. This is a guy who stood tall during the storm, and I really commend you. Well done. Now, talking about standing tall, as you may notice, William and I are the same height. Just over the years, something's happened to my height. Okay. Let's see. William Brown, born in Onslow Memorial Hospital. At the time he was born, he was so tall it took 2 baby cribs. I'm just reading the script. Okay. And he was actually born when it was located on College Street. Anybody else here born on College Street at the hospital? Mayor, you were? Gosh, a lot of you. Very good. William says that he is an Onslow County original. Those of you who work with him know, he knows, it doesn't matter what you say. Oh yeah, I know where they live. It's down, you go down to that stop sign, go to the tree, turn right. It's the second mobile home. It's the one that has the doorbell on it. You know, I mean, this guy knows. The main thing though, William is proud of his 2 daughters, his 2 grandsons, and his 1 granddaughter. Now, just for the record, you haven't had any new grandchildren like Danny has since this program started? Okay, that's good. He loves to be out boating and fishing. I have to give you a comment about William also. He runs the forest. Mayor and council know what the forest is. We don't just have a wastewater plant, we have a 7,000-acre forest. And that's where we put our wastewater. With over 21,000 sprinkler heads and over 300 miles of sprinkler pipe, this is how the community discharges its waste. We don't put it back in a river. We do it environmentally sound. Pat Donovan Potts loves that, right, Pat? Say amen, Pat. There you go. But we put it back through sprinklers. Every now and then, those sprinklers get clogged. And William and his crew fix it. And every now and then, they cross a rattlesnake, and they fix that rattlesnake too. And every now and then, they encounter coyotes and black bear and a lot of other things out there, right? But I will have to tell you one funny story. About a year ago, we took the mayor and council out there to the LTS, as we call it, the land treatment site. And as the bus pulled in, on cue, William had 23 turkey walk out of the woods right across the road. I mean, they were in step. And it wasn't even Thanksgiving. Maybe that's why they were in step. It wasn't Thanksgiving. But William and his folks, they're the other end, no pun intended here, but did you catch that pun? They're the other end of the water department. But these are people who really do a great job for you every day. Now, let's see, I've grilled you. I've got the whole crew. 25 years of service. Thank you all each. Raise your hand. Say it back there. That's up in the back. Thank you all. Now, when we started this ceremony, the following person and persons had worked 30 years, but the ceremonies lasted so long, they've now worked 31 years. So we have two people. Floyd Henderson, who's with facility maintenance. Floyd had a conflict and was not able to be with us. Floyd does a tremendous amount of work, as does all of the facility maintenance people, relative to keeping our buildings. Floyd is an expert welder. He is a very good air conditioning person. He can repair almost anything. And I wish Floyd was here tonight for us to thank him. But we do have a person that has grown very close to being what I consider a superstar with the organization, Michael LaCorey. Mike, come on up. Michael. In 1988, Michael had dropped out of middle school, and he came to work with the city. Mr. Bittner, who was the city manager in 1988, who used great judgment, was an extremely handsome city manager with extreme abilities to pick the very best employees. Who was that city manager?
I bet he was the guy that hired Michael LaCorey. What a keen sense of judgment.
That's right. And we won't tell you that it was Jerry Bittner because we wouldn't want to embarrass him, okay? But Michael heads our parks crews. If you look around Jacksonville and you see how well things look today, if you look around Jacksonville and see plants everywhere, if you're out on Western Boulevard and see mowing, now everybody who's here who works with Michael, would you stand up? These are people who get it done with Michael. Michael is a graduate of Jacksonville High School. If you notice, apparently we only hire Jacksonville High School people, occasionally at Dixon High School, and every now and then Danny, a guy from Richlands. But apparently, you know, homebodies love to work here, and that's great. In his free time, he loves to play golf. Let me tell you some other things about Michael. When Michael was in high school, he was a round baller. You know what a round baller is? Michael, what's a round baller?
My stomach.
No, that's today. I'm talking about 30 years ago. Basketball. He was a basketball player. He wasn't just a basketball player, he was a star. He was a leading player on the Jacksonville High School team, and the position he played was guard, point guard. Interestingly enough, how many of you know who Michael Jordan is? Only half of you know who Michael Jordan is? I mean, I'm talking about the Michael Jordan. I'm talking about Mr. Shoe here, you know? Mr. Chicago Bull. Well, before he became a Chicago Bull, before he became a UNC player, he played high school basketball. Michael actually played against him. And the record that I've seen, which is the one I made up, by the way, but we won't worry about that, says that night Michael scored more points than Michael Jordan did. Now, it's my story. You can tell it any way you want to. Yeah, okay. How many of you remember the NC State star, David Thompson? Okay. David Thompson obviously played high school basketball. And this Michael LaCorey, basketball star at Jacksonville High School, played against him. And according to my story, he also outscored David Thompson and actually blocked 3 of David's shots. Okay. Okay. One of the things that I find funny about Michael is he will never eat at a buffet. Just does not eat at a buffet. And you offer him a potluck, he is not going there at all. But you offer him a steak, he knows what a steak looks like, tastes like, and enjoys them every time. One of the things, though, that I really appreciate Michael is his care for his employees. Now, the 3 gentlemen who stood up over there, you know, Mike, Scott, Jason, they will tell you, this is a guy who goes out of his way for his employees. Out of his own pocket, several years ago, let me start that differently. Several years ago, he called and said, I'm going to have a hamburger social for our guys for the end of the mowing season. Would you like to come? Sure, I came over there. They had hot dogs, hamburgers. Of course, everybody knows I love hot dogs, especially when a Boston Red Sox fan is buying, which hasn't been very often, by the way. But after it was over, I said, that was really great. And one of the employees, Mike Monfort, said, you do know he paid for that out of his own pocket. I said, you're kidding. He said, no, that's what Michael does. This is a guy who cares about his employees. He sets the example for what each of us hope we will be as a supervisor, somebody who shows you care. Michael, 30 years of service. I'm not going to ask you to pat yourself on the back because I'm going to come over and do it for you. Mayor, you want to close us?
Well, Dr. Woodruff has provided us with some good comic relief tonight, and I appreciate that, Dr. Woodruff. But to those folks that were recognized tonight for your loyal service to the city, again, thank you very much. And from the bottom of my heart, you're great employees. You bring a lot to this city. Your citizens out there should be thankful for your dedication and your loyalty. Anyway, I think you're going to have a little soiree here in the lobby here in a few moments that we can actually get to grab a little something to eat and maybe socialize a little bit. But again, everybody, thank you, the families and friends and everybody, thank you so much for coming out and supporting your friend, relative, husband, spouse, brother, sister, whoever's a city employee. And again, thank you very much for your sacrifice. Sometimes these, like when we had the hurricane come through, a lot of you, your spouse or your significant other was busy taking care of the citizens, of this city, and did a great job of it. I had the occasion to come up several times into the Emergency Operations Center and see there wasn't anybody there that didn't want to be there. I'm sure they wanted to be at home with their families, but they wanted to be here for the citizens of this city. And nothing shows any more than those times when I saw them up there what it's all about, and that's looking out for the people that we look out for. But anyway, thank you very much. Enjoy the food out in the lobby.
Thank you all.